Hey, welcome back, Simian Squad, to another episode of Neckbeard Stories, here with me, Mr. Sean. Since bringing it back, Neckbeard Stories has become one of the most popular pieces on my channel, so we're going to keep going with it. 2 points before we begin, I'm going to try and keep this at under 30 minutes because a lot of you said that is how long your lunch break is, and also there's going to be timestamps for each of the stories in the description. With that being said, let's get into today's stories. Our first story comes from the perspective of a neckbeard himself, with the title of "A Man with Nothing to Lose is a Man to be Feared." I've been kicked around all of my adult life. I've mainly bounced around in crappy dead and retail jobs. I've been intimidated, physically attacked, insulted, threatened, made fun of, rejected, lied to, and humiliated. One day, a colleague took my hat and threw it in the toilet to make his buddies laugh. Was it a fedora? Something inside of me just snapped. I felt what I can only describe as the melting away of the fear of death itself. In a brief moment of humiliation, I remembered that I'm a man of no fixed abode, a man with no kith or kindred, a man who, if he died tomorrow, nobody would care, a man with nothing to lose, a man to be feared by the normies. I turned around and said, "Harry, you've got a wife, a good home, and a nice life. I have none of that. If you keep pushing me, one of these days I may just end up taking that all away from you, and that would be a shame." Yeah, threaten a guy's family, that always ends up well for you. Next day, he bought me a new hat without asking and couldn't stop apologizing. I said nothing as this man had bullied me day in and day out, and only stopped upon realizing the fragility of his own life. I'm pretty sure he finally saw how pathetic you were and he felt bad, dude. It's called empathy. It takes people a while sometimes, but they get there. Since that day, nobody has gotten away with this with me. A customer called me an ugly moron the other day. I put down my box and just stared at him with zero facial expression, not saying a word for 5 minutes. I didn't move. He left the store without reaching the checkout, leaving his items on the floor. All the other customers stared, but said nothing either. I realized what a lot of you guys reading this may not have yet realized. We are marginalized men, those pushed to the fringes of civilization. We have no girlfriends, no mortgages, no family, friends. I'm a nice guy. I don't look for trouble, and I try to be kind to everyone. But I'm also a man with nothing to lose if someone tries to bully me. Okay, dude, I'm pretty sure that didn't take a whole 5 minutes, and the customer probably left because he just thought you were a crazy person. I mean, he might not have been afraid specifically for his own life, but just staring at somebody is a little weird. I do feel bad for this guy if he truly believes he's got nothing to lose in his life. But in all likelihood, this guy also feels like people bully him way more than they do. He probably kind of just doesn't do well at a lot of things, hence why he doesn't have decent jobs. And he probably sees anybody giving him criticism on anything he does as bullying because they just don't understand that I'm an alpha male. Or whatever his rationale behind it is. So hopefully he gets it together. Next up, we have a story called "I Quit My Job at Gamestop Because of a Neckbeard Coworker." Am girl, painfully relevant. When I started working at GameStop, I thought it was a gamer's dream. Play and talk about games all day, and get paid for it. What could go wrong? Oh, could it go wrong, all right. Well, yeah, GameStop's one of the worst places to work for, kinda always has been. One of my coworkers was a planetary neckbeard who always wore the exact same black shirt and black pants, down to the food stains. He chugged Pepto-Bismol constantly. He was greasy all the time. Blackheads galore. Would be r/Popping's disgusting wet dream. Long black hair, always in a ponytail. His scent was best described as, oh god, axe to acrid. Best guess on age was early to mid-20s, but his acne was so bad I literally have no remote idea. He wouldn't do shit, both on his break and when he was supposed to be working. He sat in the back room playing games on his PSP on top of the console boxes. He was so fat he actually broke one of the PS3s once. He used to pressure people at the food court to fill up his styrofoam food container with more food, on the down low. He got a number of stores to charge mall employees a smaller amount for food so he could double his helpings per shift. Not gonna lie, can't hold that against him. That's pretty sick actually. I don't really care what his reasonings were. You're stuck at the mall, might as well get some food on the cheap. I like it. I will give him props for that. He should be your benefits coordinator. Honestly, now that I think about it, neckbeards would make excellent union reps as far as like discussing and getting deciding like the negotiating the benefits packages, because they want as much as possible for themselves with as little effort as possible. That would be great for someone to argue for better benefits for less work. I feel like they're missing their calling. Alright, back to the story, gotta keep it under 30 minutes. He was so fat, he often couldn't even make it out of the store in time for the timed alarm to set when we'd close. He was so fat, he would pick up his stomach and rest it on the counter. Wow, that's fat. I want to make it clear that I'm not saying these things to fat shame him, but I am definitely hygiene and etiquette shaming him. He just never seemed to bathe or be aware of his surroundings. Battletoads was the funniest thing in the world to him. He would make Battletoads jokes all the time to absolutely nobody's amusement. He would even call the store while he was on his break to ask if we had Battletoads. Wow, that's a joke that wasn't ever actually funny. He wouldn't care if credit cards were cut in half and retaped. He'd run them through anyway. This was Miami, so it may have been fair to assume half of the normal credit cards were stolen anyway. He would always make customers nervous by asking them about their first 4 digits of the credit card instead of the last 4 because he memorized them and he wanted to freak them out, and it was a totally inappropriate thing to do. He was apparently so hated by his previous Gamestop that they barred him from working at one of the stores in a nicer part of town. He was always lazy, always leaving stuff undone. The only thing I actually saw him do was to alphabetize things on the upper shelves, but not the lower shelves because he never bent down. Sometimes he would sit down, but because we had such small space, the customers would just walk around awkwardly, so he just stopped doing that. He would always have a giant soda, biggest styrofoam container of soda they sold at the mall, all the time. But that's just the introduction. If everything I just described was the human equivalent of forgetting to pay a parking ticket on time, buckle in and prepare your body for social Hiroshima. Okay, good. I'm glad he actually did something abysmal. It just seems like he's a fat, lazy GameStop employee at this point, which isn't a crime. I mean, it's just GameStop. But let's go. One night, he asked me if I could drive him to the train station after shift. It being Miami, the outside temperature was usually around the range of the surface of the sun, so I figured it was at least a humane thing to do, considering the train station was several blocks away. As he got in my car, the car tilted towards him and remained that way for the duration of the ride. I don't remember anything we talked about because the last words he spoke to me before he got out of the car have been laser etched into my brain for all eternity. When I get home, I'm going to masturbate to you. I handed in my 2-week notice the next day. Yeah, social Hiroshima is right. Telling someone who did you a favor that you're going to do that in normal, like as if it's a normal part of conversation, guy has no social awareness whatsoever. I don't care if I'm going to do that. That I would never tell somebody that I was going to do that. Like, hey girl, thanks for doing me a solid. As repayment, I'm gonna totally jerk it to thoughts of you tonight. Yeah, that's gonna win you friends. Okay, apparently while I was recording that last bit, it somehow activated my phone who thought I was trying to do dirty roleplay with it, and it yelled at me. Okay. Now the people at Google think I'm a perv. I mean, I am, but I didn't want them to know that. Our final story today is actually a two-parter, and was originally posted, at least the first part, on the RPG Horror Stories subreddit, but it has such beardy energy that I just could not help but share it with you today. And it has started, the first part is called Problem Player Taking Sultry Bard Too Far. I am a player at a table of 5 players. 4 of the players, including myself, as well as the DM, are male. And the problem player, who I'll call Jay, is the sole female. We have been playing at this table for just over a year, with most of us having met through knowing the DM first. Our campaign has always been more lighthearted in tone. We aren't afraid of immature moments, innuendos, or smutty humor at the table. There has always been an unfortunate tendency with the DM and some of the players to flirt with Jay's character at the table and a little out of game too. Personally, I find this to be a bit cringe, but she seems to enjoy this, so it's not really my business, and I won't white knight needlessly. However, around 3 months ago, Jay's first character was killed in combat and resisted resurrection. I have a suspicion this might have been planned with the DM, as I know she was becoming bored with the PC. No harm, no foul. The problem emerges when we were introduced to Jay's new character, a bard who is also a prostitute and whose charisma roles revolve around flirtation. Not inherently a terrible idea, nor is this a character which doesn't fit the campaign. However, it quickly becomes clear that Jay is getting a little too into this character. If the bard flashing is flashing some cleavage in game, Jay will also do this herself at the table. If she is physically affectionate in game, this happens out of game too. This was mildly immersion breaking at first, as the blatant performance for the people round the table and subsequent thirst felt like it was distracting from the game itself. But things soon went from bad to worse when Jay began to openly lift her top and show her bra on nearly every persuasion check for the near guaranteed advantage. I voiced my concerns here and was essentially told not to ruin a good thing. It has felt like every social encounter in the game for the last 2 months has been steered towards getting Jay to expose herself out of game.
Can we please play D&D now? No!
Leading to our most recent session, in which her character was railroaded into sleeping with an NPC for information, and involved Jay exposing her bare chest at the table, derailing the session entirely. I am apparently the only one who found this to be out of line. At this point, I think my time in this campaign is at an end, and I will likely bow out at the end of the current story arc. I'm certainly not a prude, nor am I judging Jay for clearly being a sexually open lady, but I feel like the core of the campaign has gone downhill in favor of the DM and the other players chasing Jay. I'm sure for some, having a topless female player at the table is dream scenario, but I just want to play my nerdy game in peace. Please validate my opinions and tell me I'm the sane one here.
Can we please play D&D now? No!
TLDR, female player shows boobs at the table and derails campaign. Man is too much of a tabletop nerd to find this in any way enjoyable and just wants to smite things instead. Edit. I attended the next session, and it did not go well. Update post on profile. Now I'm going to try, guys, before we get into that second part, I'm going to try and see both sides of this, and I'm going to try and not be too harsh on either side. OP, you have every right to be uncomfortable and to not give your consent to making a D&D game that's all about sexualizing the one female player and her showing some skin IRL at the table. You have the right to not be okay with that, and that's perfectly fine. You are not comfy in this situation, but what I'm going to tell you is that the problem is still you in this case, because now you are no longer compatible with the table. This game is no longer one you are compatible with, but you have made the right decision here, because what has to happen here is you need to leave. While your feelings are valid, the fact that the majority of the table is fine with this means that you are the one who either needs to change or leave. And I'm glad you've made the decision to leave rather than trying to get people to do what you want. That is very mature, and but I also don't necessarily think your table, other than the simple fact that they are not factoring your feelings in and they're not having a discussion with you, there's nothing wrong with them enjoying the fact that these sexless, nerdy guys now have a, as you put it, sexually open lady who is more than happy to give them their dose of IRL female nudity that they are so lacking. The only thing they are truly failing in is communication. At least that is my opinion right now. Let's go into the next part and see if I am completely wrong. Update. Player takes sultry bard way over the line. My last session at the table. This is an update on a post of a few days ago. Link on my profile for context. I can't seem to work out hyperlinking on mobiles. Apologies. But essentially, a player at the table has been over-sexualizing her character to the point of exposing herself topless at the table, and the DM has encouraged and incentivized this with no regard to consent. It has totally ruined the game and made me uncomfortable. But I am the only person at the table who thinks this.
Can we please play D&D now? No!
Again, that's pretty much a recap of what we just said. At least the story is staying consistent. To everyone who warned me to quit the campaign then and there rather than see out the story arc with one last session, you were absolutely right to make this recommendation. Sadly, my reluctance to let go of this campaign I've invested a year of my life into, and my FOMO with the quest art got the better of me, and I attended last night with the intention of bowing out gracefully. I had a character moment prepared that would be unobtrusive and avoid potentially stoking an argument. This, as many warned me, did not go to plan. Straight off the bat, it was extremely obvious that conversations had been had between sessions that I was not privy to. And Jay is extremely flirty with everyone at the table from the off, referring to having something up her sleeve. They, in turn, could not seem to wipe the smirks off their increasingly punchable faces. Another point of note, aside from the one person at the table who is a generally friendly person, they are also extremely cold with me from the moment I arrived, the DM in particular. I was under the impression that with the session starting off with a combat almost immediately, I'd at least be able to play some real D&D and would be safe from whatever game the others think they are playing. But no. Jay, during a battle description prompted by the DM, describes her character doing a flip, and she tells us that the party notices in this moment that she is not wearing underwear. This, in turn, leads to a very uncomfortable moment in which the DM asks her to describe her character's genitals, and Jay gladly gives a very vivid description. There is no way this was not a prepared bit, because Jay cannot improv descriptions like these. I tried to carry on and block out the cringe, but knowing that I'll be retiring from the table at the end of the session, it was hard to really give a shit. Post-combat, the party takes a long rest, and immediately my fellow party members start using their characters to quiz Jay's bard on her lack of underwear, and tell her how much they enjoyed it. I make a very clear point that my character goes to bed as he finds this fawning difficult to watch, and so do I. But they only seem to find my point amusing. They start exchanging glances and making an in-joke I clearly don't understand, like children, before turning their attention back to Jay. My dude, I know this makes you uncomfortable, but I'm getting severe main character vibes from you. Like, the group has made a decision to take the game in a different direction, but rather than just bowing out, I mean, you are bowing out, but you wanted to have that one last hurrah. Like somehow these guys who now are more focused on sexy girl than the D&D are going to care what your character ending is. Like, I'm getting definite main character vibes from you, my guy, and I'm not feeling it. Like, again, I'm sorry you're uncomfortable, but I'm getting a different kind of beardiness off of you. Jay is giving them all the "did you like what you saw" speech, and I'm openly rolling my eyes at this point as they bombard Jay's bard with compliments that clearly apply to Jay herself. In turn, she lifts her dress and, as I guessed was the case from the multitude of unsubtle hints, is not wearing anything under this dress. She proceeds to take it off completely, and whilst the rest of the table goes rabid for this display of full nudity, I instantly shut my laptop and start packing my bag, announcing I'm done and won't be returning to the table. My paladin has died in his sleep because he has lost the will to live. A little spiteful of me, perhaps, but I had a point to make, and I'm hoping I can bring a spiritual successor to another table as I love this sanctimonious bastard. Yeah, dude, definite main character vibes here. The DM, who was the person at the table I knew pre-game, an old colleague, instantly burns his bridges with me and says, okay, F off then. I knew that if he was asked to choose between me and Jay, he would choose the naked woman, but the venom with which he did this tells me it wasn't a difficult choice at all, and I probably dodged a boulet. DM then tells me to go write another Reddit post about it. I did suspect there was a possibility they might find my last post, and I suspect they're looking for this one too now. If any of them are reading, have this on me, and maybe reflect on the comments left by countless people in the previous post if you won't listen to me. This also explains why they were a-holes from the off this week, though I don't know why they chose not to confront me beforehand if they had an issue with my Reddit post. Either way, they wanted a premeditated argument, or for whatever reason, they, or Jay, wanted me there for her not-so-surprise reveal. This means they were all fully aware of my discomfort this week, and proceeded regardless. Jay knew full well she was making me uncomfortable, and made the decision to expose herself even more than before, so she has completely lost the benefit of the doubt I gave her. If you're reading, you're extremely lucky this hasn't blown up in your face. I walked out on the session then and there, and didn't look back. Judging by the very explicit photos of Jay which had appeared on our D&D Discord by the time I'd driven home, I made the right decision. It seems the game was abandoned altogether last night. Left the Discord without another word, and as it stands, I have zero intention of conversing with any of them again, except maybe the one who didn't give me the cold shoulder. I am absolutely fuming that this campaign has gone down the pan. Our DM was extremely competent, one of the best I'd had, and this has been entirely thrown away at the promise of a pretty girl dropping her knickers at the table.
Can we please play D&D now? No!
So if anyone in Southeast UK has an open table where the only unexpected mounds I have to contend with are the shambling kind, and in which the only dilapidated cavern I will be subjected to is a dragon's lair, I have a recently deceased paladin hoping to wake up in a better world. TLDR, I ignored Reddit's advice to not attend another session after our bard took roleplay to an explicit extreme. My paladin chose to die in his sleep rather than watch a bunch of desperate fools experience what I can only imagine is their first naked woman. I removed myself from, presumably, some sort of orgy, on principle, because dragons and spells are cooler. And yeah, the comments in these stories were very much on the side of the OP, and again, he is completely right to not be okay with this. If this is not what he wants out of his D&D, that's fine. I cannot blame him for that, alright? There's nothing wrong with being more into the idea of Dungeons and Dragons than naked ladies. But the thing is, my dude, you were in a group that, while it might not have started that way, apparently they were all way more into naked ladies than Dungeons and Dragons. And they just so happened to have a lady there who was more than willing to accommodate that desire. The idea shifted, the consent was given by everyone but you, and ultimately, rather than just bowing out gracefully, you decided to go to Reddit and whine, with the knowledge that very well they may see your Reddit posts, as apparently they're all also on Reddit. So you make a post bashing them because they're not playing the D&D you want, and then you expect them to be civil and have an adult conversation argument with you when you won't do the same with them. Now, was them tricking you into having to sit in a room with a completely naked lady a little bit childish? Absolutely. But again, they were returning the same energy you gave, where they weren't going to confront you directly. They were just kind of like, oh, he doesn't like this? Okay, well, we're gonna do this. He's gonna leave anyway. You made it a big point that you were going to leave after you had your character moment. But again, main character vibes, like, instead of just leaving the table because it wasn't what you wanted to end on your terms in game. And I don't really respect that. Because even though you are in the right of as far as consent goes, that you don't have to consent to these things, you chose to come back to something you weren't comfortable with just so you could do things your way. Which is a little selfish, my man. And then you got butthurt and made another Reddit post when they shared that same energy back at you. Now they've ended on their terms, and you didn't get a satisfying moment because they, you wouldn't just talk with them. Also, apparently, you're a little butthurt that the DM didn't have trouble choosing between you and a naked lady, but from what you've said, that should have been obvious to you. Like, clearly, again, he's a sexed up nerd who would gladly cast aside all of his friends for naked lady, and you knew this. I think this is a case of the world is how it is, not how we would like it to be, and you weren't able to see that. Look, consent is very important at the table. I will say that. I mean, it's incredibly important. And if you're not comfortable with something, you speak up about it. And if a compromise can't be reached, then you leave the table. There is a time that I would have been absolutely thrilled if a girl at my table decided to take all of her clothes off. I mean, to a point, I still wouldn't mind that. But right now, I game with my wife and family and friends that, quite frankly, no, that's not the vibe I want for my campaign, so not in my actual games. But again, it's this idea that they were all comfortable with something and you weren't. And that's fine. You don't have to be, but then that's just not the table for you. So while yes, these game guys you were gaming with were all probably very beardy individuals, you're not so clean yourself. You're a different kind of beard, in the same way that Sheldon Cooper is a different kind of nerd than the other nerds in the Big Bang Theory. While yes, he might not be sex crazed, he has his own insufferable tendencies, and I got to imagine that you've got some of yours too, OP. So I hope you finally found a table that fits your needs, because again, anyone who plays D&D, that's all that I wish for them, but I feel like you were a little harsh on your old friends simply because they had different ideas than you. It's one thing when one person at the table, whether it's a player or the DM, is trying to make things sexual, much to other people's discomfort, but when the majority of the table is A-okay with it, and I mean everyone, including the girl being sexualized, and the only person uncomfortable is you, someone who is not being sexualized or even fully forced to participate in it, you're not wrong for not being okay with it, but you need to find a different table. That's on you. The mistake you made was not just leaving quietly, and rather you went to Reddit to whine, and then you came back for one final hurrah because of your beardy main character syndrome. So, unlike the other people on Reddit, I can't say you're totally blameless. And while it was a little weird, ultimately, read the room, dude. And please don't think I'm just making fun of you for not being into sexualized D&D. I actually have talked about this on my channel before. I found myself in a situation very similar where I joined a group of people, a D&D game led by my coworker, and it turned out to be hyper-sexualized, and I was not comfortable. I didn't confront him about it, I just didn't come back. So I've been where you are, I just went about it very differently. And that's the video, guys. I think we kept it in at under 30 minutes, which is good. There'll be more next week. Please like, comment, subscribe. Comments have been very, very good for the channel. We've been getting a lot more lately, so please keep those coming. Honestly, let me know how you feel about my take on this last story. Was I too harsh? Or was this just a case of this not being the right table for the OP? Let me know in the comments. Also, maybe check out my memberships or my Patreon, or go on over to eBay and Mercari and maybe take a look at some of my custom miniatures. Until next time, everybody, I'm Mr. Sean. This is Mr. Sean Productions, and I sincerely hope that you alpha great day and an even beta tomorrow. Bye-bye.